This is Coop's Comedy Corner. Buckle up because it's funny as Coop's Comedy Corner.
Welcome to Coop's Comedy Corner. I'm Steve Cooper. I'm your host. I want to give a shout out to Jimmy Corhan and Comedy Trainwreck. They produce some great shows. They're bringing me in every week. And I want to give a big shout out to my sponsor. My sponsor, if you're down in Maple Shade, right on Route 73 is Laurel Lanes. You know, Laurel Lanes is the ultimate entertainment center. They have 60 lanes of bowling. They have a state-of-the-art arcade games. They have a private luxury suite. I mean, they have something for everybody. And you can go there for corporate events, birthday parties, or just a night out with friends. And when you're hanging out, they have this great restaurant bar called Splits. I actually host a networking event there once a month called Cocktails with Cooper. We get a big turnout. And if you host a networking event with them, they'll give you 10% back to your charity of choice for the first time you host. And they have a happy hour every Monday through Friday from 4 to 7. And they have events during the month like beer pong, karaoke, trivia. So just go. It's fun. And on your way out, stop at their ice cream place. It's called Lickety Splits. They have homemade concoctions. And they even have ones with alcohol. And I've had the butter pecan bourbon, and it's very good. So people, check out Splits, Laurel Lanes, laurellainesnj.com. Check out Splits there. And they're right down on Route 73 in Maple Shade. Anyway, I'm talking about junk food and ice cream. And my guest today has a cookbook about eating, not a cookbook, a book about dieting and eating clean. And he did Cooper Talk, 13 years ago. And I had been a fan of his work. I saw him on The Tonight Show. He was in the movie Roxanne. And now we have his book coming out. It's called There Is No Wagon. When it comes to dieting, you can't fall off. And my guest is Steve Mittleman. How you doing, Steve?
Hey, how are you? I've got to say, great to see you. Thank you, Steve, for inviting me to do this. I got to tell you, in 90 minutes, I'm going bowling. I'm in a league. It's just, the synchronicity is just nuts. And I love it. I'm not good at it, but it's a bunch of old Jews and one guy who is definitely not Jewish. And we have a lot of laughs, and we are very encouraging, and we do okay. But I suck. No, generally suck. Maybe better tonight because I said that. I unjinxed myself.
I'm not good at bowling, and I always blame it because I'm blind in one eye. So I say I have no depth perception. But you don't need depth perception for bowling. You just pick up the ball. See, I always curl it. My wrist curls, and I get this wicked curve.
Yeah, I know. I get it. I understand. I did something. I had a screwball with I'm right-handed. I had a screwball, and it was eventually, but I had it for like 30, 40 years. I mean, literally that long. And somebody says, no, you got to get a new ball, and they'll drill it, and you can go right. And now I got a bit of a hook. Not terrible, but it's a decent hook, a little curve. Still the right side. Somebody wanted to teach me the two-handed bowling recently, but I thought it was too. But I also see through. I'm not blind in one eye, but I only see through one eye at a time. Seriously, I have strabismus, and which is a little better at times. Depends if I'm tired or not. Is one eye will go that way, one eye will go that way, and I have something called horror fusionalis, which is my eyes don't fuse. One eye at a time, and that's it. That's all I get. So in a way, I'm blind. I'm always blind in whatever I am not looking through. But I have a bit depth perception. It's pretty crazy, but that's there's an expression, terminal uniqueness. I'm terminally unique.
Well, I always say, because we don't have good depth perception, we're the crappiest parallel parkers because we can never judge it. It takes like 5 times to pull in because you go back in, and it's awful.
You know what was one of the most embarrassing things about my childhood is on my first driving test. I took 3. I passed on my 3rd, right? On my first driving test, it said hit a tree. Is that the worst? The worst. I actually had to look at those words, hit a tree. And here's comedy. You know how comedy is? I love the irony. Wherever there's irony, there's comedy, right? And my dad, who taught me how to drive, right? Also in school in Queens, we had driver's ed, but my dad also taught me how to drive. On the way to my driving test, that first test, he got into an accident. The guy that taught me how to drive.
Your work's cut out for you. So okay. So let's get to this book because you know what I like. I like it. And the opening, you say you are not a medical expert, which is very important because we come from a day and age. You go on LinkedIn, everybody's a self-proclaimed expert. I always say I'm a self-proclaimed expert when saying if people are experts or not, because everyone's an expert.
You can't do that. You just can't do. You can't say that. I speak in very general terms. Very general terms. If you want me to explain the title, I mean, you did a pretty good job already. But the gist is, I think nationwide, maybe worldwide, people, and I live this, so I'm really just sharing my story. That's what I'm doing. I'm going to speak of which I got a little too cold in here, and let's see if I can lower this. So the deal is, I sound like Biden. Here's the deal. The deal is, everybody in the world, from the first time they ever need to be on a diet, and my weight would go up and down 20, 30, 40 pounds, but I'm 6'4", and it doesn't show as much, it just doesn't show as much. But I was on every diet A through Z, and then what happens, we use the expression, well, I fell off my wagon, I fell off the wagon. I fell off the diet. That's what they mean, right? And what it is you're being sold out. The diet industry loves you to think that, because what happens is you think you fell off the wagon. You tell yourself that, so you do. As long as you say, "Oh yeah, I just slipped up. I just screwed up." Whatever it is, whatever you want to call it, and then you binge till you gain the weight back and go on another diet that you fall off of, and you say, I fell off the wagon. Even scientists use the expression, even nutritionists, doctors, the pros, eating disorder specialists, they go, well, you got to get on this, you fell off that. They're doing it all the time, and it screws with people. It's subtle and it's overt, because people soak that in and they go, oh, damn, I screwed up. They get into perfection. I got out of perfection. I'm certainly not perfect with this, but you know what I do? If I screw up, I don't fall off anything. I just trudge along. And I love myself through it. It's a lot about self-love and self-compassion and not beating yourself up emotionally, because first of all, people are addicted to dieting. And they go and, we're not made for, we're in a climate right now with all the processed food that you mentioned before and everything else, basically almost on every shelf in every grocery store other than the produce section. There's a lot of, Jews would say chazarai, a lot of crap, a lot of dreck, a lot of junk, that's all. And we're in the climate where we're seduced by this stuff, and we're human and we make mistakes, and like I said, I'm not perfect. I still make a decent amount of mistakes, but again, I'm not perfect. But the fact that I tell myself now I fall off nothing, it's an unbelievable asset for me. And I think everybody should have that same asset. It's a paradigm that has not worked. It's just not worked for whether it's our country or probably worldwide. What works is industry, because they call it SAD, the sad American diet, our diet, our fast food or whatever else. And I love everything, no doubt. I'm not coming from a pedestal, but whenever we export or some other country imports our way of eating, they start getting the same rates of heart disease, certain cancers, type 2 diabetes. Everything goes to the same level. It rises to the same crap, rises to the same level of ill health and excess weight. And we're in a bad space. So the other through line, I think, go ahead. You have something to
No, I
ask?
was going to say no. I was going to agree with you. When I was just, me and my wife were in Italy, and I drink some wine, and I wouldn't wake up feeling like crap because everything you eat is so much cleaner. Like I even picked up a soda, a Fanta, and it didn't taste like it tasted more watery, and Gatorade tastes different. And I think because they use everything's more natural. You go out to eat, and it's
Yeah,
like the one guy, the big butcher. He had it.
yeah,
Yeah, so it's funny because we do sit there and we do eat a lot of crap. I mean, I sat there. I wrote a cookbook 12 years ago. I had congestive heart failure. I had to change my diet completely. I had to watch my salt. And it was called Stop the Salt, low sodium cooking for one without killing yourself. And the thing that you said about reading and process, people don't look at the salt content. Like people pick up a can of Campbell's chunky soup and they go, "Oh,
oh
there's
my God.
1,200 milligrams. Okay, that's half what I can have." But then no, that chunky Campbell soup has 2 servings of soup. Now I don't care who you say. I don't know one person who's ever sat down and not eaten the whole Campbell chunky soup because you
I,
just put it in a bowl and you eat fucking clam chowder.
I don't know if you remember, but I did like 50 commercials. I mean, I looked different before. It was much more of a character. And so I get a lot of commercials, and I played a dad, and I was doing stuff with my kid and not with my kid in the commercial. It's all in 30 seconds. But it got to the point where I had to take a spoonful in that moment in the Campbell's commercial, right? It was vegetarian or vegetable soup or whatever. And everybody's there from Campbell's. They rented a place in like Pasadena, beautiful house, and I'm at the dining room table, and I take a spoonful. They make it from different angles. You take like 30 spoonfuls, and you go, oh, okay, and like for 40 of them, and they give you a bucket. The director goes to me. Well, listen, don't worry, spit it out. It's morning time. You probably don't want to eat that stuff anyway. And so, 30, 40, 50 times. Ooh, yeah. Okay, so then we take a break. And out comes literally, taps me on the shoulder. I turn around and is watching from the other room on a monitor the owner of Campbell's, literally the owner of Campbell's. And he goes, "Hey, I've got to ask you, this sounds like a Curb Your Enthusiasm moment, right?" He goes, "I got to ask you, what's with the spitting out? Why were you spitting out our product?" And I go, "Well, I was told it was okay, but honestly," and then I ad-libbed in my head. I said, "Well, I get sick from the MSG. I'll get a headache and I'll get dizzy. And, MSG is salt. So anyway," he goes, "We totally understand." "Oh, I get it." He goes, he's the owner of Campbell's. He goes, "Oh yeah, I get that. What are you kidding?" It reminds me of another commercial I did for Dunkin' Donuts. Remember the Chip Witch? Remember the Chip Witch?
Yeah, yeah, I love that thing.
Yeah, like 30 years ago. So Dunkin' Donuts came up with their own Chipwich, their own Chipwich. Okay, and I had to take a bite. It was that moment in the commercial where I had to take a bite. Remember the guy with it was like a time to make the donuts. He'd get up at like 4 in the morning. Yeah. So he was in the commercial. I was in the commercial, and I was like, "Oh wow, I love Chipwiches." So take a bite. They spray it like with the worst, who knows what I was eating. It was like, WD-40 or whatever. Anyway, they spray it, and you take a bite. They want me to go, that's it, right? Like 30, 40 takes, 30, 40 bites. I see them spraying crap on like a new Chipwich, their version of a Chipwich. And I go, and then the guy says, "All I want was, And at the 40th take, I go, "Ooh." And I swear, I go, "This is so director-like, commercial director-like." He goes, "I like it." Like 30 and one ooh. He goes, "Oh my God, that was so creative. Ooh was creative."
Now, you did a lot of commercials, but I want to talk about your career and when you did the Tonight Show and all that. But I want to find out, your book, why did you decide to write the book now? Because I know you do some corporate stuff and you did a dry bar special and you're still doing stand-up, but what made you decide to write the book? Was it just something you always wanted to do, or you know, and how did you attack it?
I wrote it 20 years ago. The book is like one page. I'm going to show you something pretty amazing. Okay, in my good old folder here, the folder for my notes folder, if you look at this, all iCloud, 9,327 notes. I'd say 7,000 to 8,000 of them are for my books. This is just the first book. There's like 200 something notes in there. And I wrote them on email before, and probably a lot of longhand stuff I just transcribed. But yeah, I've been writing on this for 20 years. I could never rectify comedian and do this. It seemed like a left turn. I could never justify it in my head, or I felt like I had a lot to say, but I could never, it seemed like a real change of direction for me. But it's my real passion. And here's my real passion, okay? One, I'd rather not see people replicate what they're doing already. Or if I learn from my mistakes, I just hope that they can learn from what I can express something that may shine a light in their approach, right? Because I don't think dieting works. I think it's a bad paradigm. It hasn't served people most of the time. It's really shown how if I gain 20, 30, 40 back and forth, people are gaining 70, 80, 90 back and forth. It's really unhealthy. And so the other through lines are, I'm not a nutritionist or a dietitian, but I'll say up your fruits and veggies. And after that, up your fruits and veggies and greens. And after that, and just continue doing that. So maybe you can crowd out the crap, in one's life. And I'm very much, I believe that, the nature left us clues or leaves us clues, because we have air we can breathe, we have water we can drink, and we have things that grow on the land and in trees and on vines and on bushes that, it's a clue for us to eat those things. Greens and, veggies and kale. People make fun of kale. But truth is, I think if we embrace that and eat more and more and more of it, which I do, that our health, our weight will come down to our normal healthy weight. Maybe our diseases, you see, like type 2 diabetes is what's called a food-borne disease. It's food-borne. It's born out of the foods that you eat, right? And simply, if you start eliminating those things, if you're eliminating the cause, your best health emerges. So let's call your best health the best you can look and the best you can feel right now. Just deal with right now. If you screw up, a second later, you can rectify that. If I go to a party and I have, a bunch of onion rings, a second later I can go get the celery sticks or the carrot, whatever that people put out, right? Or those broccoli things, right? Or, the little pieces and cauliflower, whatever it is. It's not like you fall off a wagon. You can always go back to nature and immediately, it's not like, I don't believe in counting days, counting, weeks, months, years, like, oh, I've been abstinent or whatever for this amount of time. Just take care of right now. It takes a lot of pressure off. I don't really regret the past. I try not to live in the future. I try to take care of right now. I'm not sure if I answered your question, but
I wanted to ask you why'd you decide to write the book? You've been living, and I saw you, and you said you started 20 years ago. Why didn't you just bring it out 20 years ago?
Well, that's a great question. I don't really have a great answer for it, except what I said was I couldn't rectify it in my mind that I'm going, hey, world, this is me, Steve Mittleman, and this is my, whatever you call it, cause, The other through line, I believe, is everybody should be healthy. Everybody should be. I don't care where. I don't care who's in office. I don't care about. I'm Jewish. I don't care if it's Nazis or SS or skinheads or the most spiritual person in the world. Opposite that, everybody be healthy. We're going to coexist and get along a lot better. We'll express ourselves a lot better. I think we'll be more loving. I mean, I believe in not harming animals, and that's a part of it, but I don't call myself vegan or even vegetarian. I believe the planet leaves us consistent clues since probably the dawn of man of how we can sustain ourselves. So I think we should all be healthy. We're going to get along a lot better, and because we're getting along a lot better, I think a lot of the problems in the world will kind of iron themselves out. So I think there's a greater good. Yes, people be as healthy as they can. Two, people get along a lot better, because we're on the same page. So yeah. Anyway, so now now's the time. I don't know what. It took me a long time to, like I said, to feel like this is like 20 years in the making. But along the way, I've never stopped writing. And before I started writing this on this particular subject, I lived all the mistakes till I got to these conclusions.
Also, you were a comic. You were a comic, and comics notoriously don't have a healthy lifestyle, especially you perform late at night, you eat late at night. I mean, it's just something. It's part of the industry. Because when did you start comedy?
December 16th, 1976. I started in New York. Yeah, I was away at school. I did a set at the Rathskeller at Rockport, upstate New York. I loved it even at that moment, and I always loved stand-up and wanted to be a disc jockey or a comedian. So, but in the summer of 76, I auditioned a number of times at the clubs in New York, the Improv. Comic Strip wasn't even there yet. Catch a Rising Star. And I think I passed in those places eventually, but I was just hanging out. I was going on at all on audition night. But I would watch and learn. But then I went away to school. But at the point I went back to school, now I was at University of Buffalo, I was addicted to comedy, addicted to it. It's what it is. You get laughs, it's the greatest. And especially when you start like, oh my God, I can see something here for myself. And this was after a lifetime of loving it. So University of Buffalo is a remarkably liberal school, and my dad had a stroke, and I was his dependent. But if I was going to school and had 12 credits in school, I could get from Social Security, because he had a stroke and I was his dependent, like $150 a month. So I went to the very liberal professor in the very liberal school. I said, can I do an independent study called stand-up comedy? And he goes, yes. And in that moment, I mean, I just got chills. I literally had 12 credits of stand-up. So December 15th was the last day of the, I guess, fall, winter term at school. And the next night I was hanging out, December 16th. I was hanging out at Catch. And every month I got my 150. I wasn't a starving artist. And speaking of starving, to get back to your point, yeah, we ate crap. I mean, I ate, I was up till 6 a.m. I stayed on my sister's futon on 89th between 1st and 2nd. If they liked you, usually if you went on stage, got on stage and did a set, you get a burger. If they loved you, you get like shrimp scampi, And if I did more than one club a night, I was eating 2 burgers a night. And, when they started giving cab fare, I had enough for, eggs in the morning, at mid-noon or 2 p.m. because I was up till 6 a.m. and hanging out with comics. And yeah, I would eat and just, there was no But I will tell you, during that time, and when I was in college, I had, and I was, at 19, I had the worst. I had what's called prostatitis, which was very painful. What issue with the prostate? Usually older people get it, but I got it, and I went to a million doctors, tried a million drugs, nothing helped. And one day I went to this fancy schmancy urologist on like Fifth Avenue or whatever. And he goes, you know what helped one of my patients? He quit caffeine. And at that point, I was having caffeine like crazy. And I'd have a Coke before every set, a glass of Coke. And so I was buzzed on coffee. And it stopped on a dime. This 5-year, 6-year issue stopped on a dime. So at that point, when I was 25, I think it was simply, I made a connection. I said, well, if I am what I drink, maybe I am what I eat. And that's how I kind of then I went to this, again, fancy schmancy doctor who was like into food allergies. Geller, I think his last name was. And he gave me a list of what I was allergic to. And I trimmed down, good deal. I started for the first time in my life. I didn't have a vegetable till I was out of college, I think, out of school, literally.
Now, so you're trimming down. Now you're trimming down. Now I got to ask you. You get rid of. You have the prostate's good because you figured quit the caffeine. You were working out in New York. How did you end up in LA? Because that's what I know. Because I know you did the Tonight Show, and I want to get into Extreme Makeover because you told me that story last time, and that blows me away. But if people tell them what your act was in the beginning, tell them how you looked.
Well, I mean, you can look up on. I guess they could find it. I mean, I'm putting together a new website called The Steve Mittleman. Somebody has Steve Mittleman, so I took The Steve Mittleman like I'm really a hotshot, thestevemittleman.com. But maybe I'll stick this picture on. But if you were to see in fact, I could try and find it, but I don't want to slow down. I'm not going to do it. If you would see me, you'd see me with another 40, 50 pounds. But I spent 9 years in New York. I thought it was the greatest training in the world. And people like in New York, it's the weather, the traffic, the energy of it. If there is some truth to if you can make it there, you can make it anywhere. So I won the Laugh Off in 1980 on Showtime. I beat Eddie Murphy, among other people. A lot of great people on that show. Among them, Rick Overton and Carol Leifer and Mark Schiff. They're all great comics, and I won it. Guido Sarducci was the host, and it kicked the door open for me. I started getting a lot of gigs. But when I won that, they flew out Mark Schiff, who came in second, and I to LA to meet a million people. We auditioned for the Tonight Show. We both didn't get it. But on the flight, like 4 seats over, first class, was Richard Pryor. It was like and this was not long after he set himself on fire, We were both so scared. We drew lots, or straws or whatever, who was going to, we were both nervous. And Mark is not nervous about anything like that. He'll go up to anybody. And so I think I lost. And by the time I turned around, he was asleep like the whole flight. So we never said hello to him, but we were terrified. But we both auditioned to the Tonight Show. We didn't get it. I tell this story at the end of my act, but I'll tell it to you now. Well, when I was a little kid in Queens, the hallway I was the younger brother. I shared a room. My brother, my sister was in the other room. But it just this much of you could see from in our apartment, you could see the zenith, in the living room. And you could see Carson's head. I could see Carson's head. And I was like 8 years old or whatever, 7, 8 years old. And I'd hear him tell jokes, and then I'd fall asleep. I go, man, that sounds like a lot of fun. And I would see comedians on Sullivan, right? But I auditioned for the Tonight Show. And when I would do clubs around the country, it's like you go for like 5 or 6 days. It was 6, 7, 8 shows a week. And you get really good from all that stage time. And people would come over to me and go, after the show, they go, you do Johnny? That's how he was, just Johnny. Everybody knew it was Johnny. You do Johnny? I go, no, not yet. And then they would do this. They would go, you're Johnny's kind of comedian. You're Johnny's kind of comedian. I'm telling you, you're Johnny's kind of comedian. And I go, well, thank you very much. Then I'd audition again for Macaulay, Jim Macaulay, the booker. And he'd go, I don't think you're Johnny's kind of comedian. It was like literally the complete opposite. And I go, then I do a million shows around the country. Say no, I hadn't been on there. You're Johnny's kind of comedian everywhere. You're Johnny's kind of comedian. Then, literally, then I moved out to LA in '85 and auditioned another, probably 10 times of You're Not Johnny's Kind of Comedian to You Got It. And my chin material, like I had the weak chin stuff, my material, yeah. So I did that and I killed. I just had a great set. And now he goes, you got to meet Johnny. This is Macaulay. You got to meet Johnny. He's going to love you. You got to meet Johnny. So I meet Johnny. He knows exactly where Johnny goes after the taping of the show. And he goes, Johnny Carson, Steve Mittleman. And Carson looks me in the eye. He goes, you are my kind of comedian. I was like, oh, that's one of the greatest payoffs after 10 or more years of, and little kid, this is 30 years later or whatever. So it was great.
Now, you also, you've had an interesting career. Didn't you beat Rosie O'Donnell in Star Search?
Yeah, I did. She had won like 10, 11, 12 times. And she, I don't know if she won that year, in fact, but she, it was that original, it was the original one. It was, wasn't it? But I was backstage, and when I beat her, she goes, oh, thank God, I was so out of material. I'm so happy you beat me. I mean, at that point, and this is like 2 minutes, just 2 minutes of stand-up. That was it. So speaking of Star Search, I'll tell you about my parents. I don't know. My dad he was a rageaholic. He was like Frank Costanza, basically, but not as funny. But my dad was very funny. So I did Star Search, and then the next one I lost. I lost to this guy, Ken Ober. I don't know if you remember Ken, but he did a number of things. Yeah, nice guy, and he apologized. He goes, "I'm so sorry. I really thought you won." It was very sweet of him, and the producers go, "We had you going all the way. I can't believe you're out of here after 2 shows." And so, but I was very disappointed. And what happens is I never heard from my parents. You want to hear from your parents, good luck or good try or congratulations on the first win. I don't hear anything, nothing from my parents. They were, shy about show business. It's just their background. You know what I mean? It was just not what they are about and were about. It was, so I finally called them up like about a week after I was eliminated, and my dad gets on the phone, and I go, after a few minutes, I go, listen, Dad, it would have been nice if you or Mom would have called and said, listen, hey, son, we're sorry it didn't work out, and good luck for the next thing you do. And he actually says these words to me. He goes, Mom didn't like your material. Can you, what? Mom didn't like your material. Seriously, I had like a couple of jokes about her, but it's meaningless. They had seen me numerous times in Florida. They moved to Florida. And anyway, that was the deal, that Mom didn't like your material. So I did along the same lines. I just finished that ties into this. they were very much Depression era people. You know, they were into coupons. We lived in an apartment. My dad literally built an extra closet in their master bedroom in the apartment. Literally built a closet there for all the cans in case there's a nuclear attack or in case the Nazis come by again. You know, literally, it's like, yeah. So that was their mentality. I'm cutting them some slack because I'm kind of foreshadowing the end of the story. But I was in the movie Roxanne, you know, with Steve Martin. It was great. It was a great experience. You know, they had the big, you know, red carpet and the, you know, the big deal. You know, I was on Entertainment Tonight. I was like the sixth lead in the movie, right? And it was a great experience, amazing experience. One of the highlights of my career. And so it got great reviews. And I call my parents on like that Thursday, the day before the weekend, the opening blast of, you know, everywhere. It was going to be everywhere in the country. And I go to my parents, I go, it really is going to be a lot of fun for you. I'm in the movie throughout. I don't have a lot to say, but I'm throughout the movie, and it's lots of stars in there. You know, Daryl Hannah and Steve Martin, and yeah, I think you should go. You know, just go. And my dad actually says these words to me. He goes, "We're going to wait for it to come to the Dollar Theater." This is why I got into comedy. We're going to wait for the Dollar Theater. You got a son in a hit major studio release, Dollar Theater. Anyway, but that's crazy.
Okay, so back then you did a lot of the chin material. Okay,
oh yeah,
so that was, you know, and you were getting commercials with that.
oh
so,
yeah.
So what made you? Because we talked about this, and I forget the story. What made you end up being on Extreme Makeover? Because it's like a total different career thing.
I know. Well, I'll tell you, at that point, I was just about 50, and I was kind of looking. My career hit a kind of a dead end, more or less. I was just 20 years ago. I was kind of just divorced or getting divorced. I had watched the show when I was married with my ex-wife, you know. So, in fact, that was at the time Wendy Kaminoff, and she was from Cherry Hill. I think we talked about that. So that's near the neck of the woods. So anyway, so I knew the show, I was familiar with it. I thought they only used the best doctors, and so I got an email from an agent, Chuck Johnson, if you know who he is, and he goes, "They're looking for a comedian for Extreme Makeover. I think you'd be perfect for this." And it was kind of a meeting of the moment. You know, it was like, again, I was kind of burnt out. I was kind of getting depressed. You know, I was hitting 50. Now I'm about 70. And I went, well, I've seen the show. Maybe it'll give me a boost in my career. Maybe it'll give me a boost in my emotions, my attitude about myself. And I said, eventually I said, okay, I'll do it. You know, I thought because of all my credits, I've done like 100 TV shows and all the commercials and sitcoms and, you know, a few movies. And I thought I had a great shot versus other comics. And my whole thing is about having a weak chin and self-deprecating material. And I said yes, and they said yes. And it's sort of like it's like a carrot. You're chasing a carrot. Once you think, oh, I'd like to do this, you know, you go, I want it more and more and more, and you're chasing this carrot. And then the carrot, I caught the carrot. You know, they said, yeah, sure, we want you. So I'll tell you an interesting thing that I stuck on YouTube was the producer's interview of me. I stuck in I think it's about 12 or 14 minutes, where I get into the kind of the depths of all this. So if anybody wants to look at go to YouTube and see Steve Mittleman Extreme Makeover. There's clips about my Extreme Makeover on there from ABC, and they tape every moment, even of your surgeries, and they cut like 40, I think it was about 50 hours into 20 minutes. That's all it is. Do you remember Taxi Cab Confessions on HBO? They literally taped for that.
I always wondered why those people would sign, like there's some guy going down on some girl in the back of a cab and they signed a release form. So somewhere their parents are going, oh, look, my daughter's getting eaten out on a national TV. I never understood why they'd sign the damn release forms.
But I will tell you, along those lines, they taped literally like 2,000 hours, and they cut it into 10 minutes, 15 minutes. There's a lot of tape. But when I taped Extreme Makeover in my 40, 50 hours that they had me on tape, the producer, this guy, I believe it was Brett, pretty sure Brett, great guy, he begged the producers of Extreme Makeover, use him for the whole hour. Give him a whole hour. It'll be great. It's captivating. And they wouldn't do it. They paired me up with like another person, which somebody who's becoming a plastic surgeon. So it was kind of a good fit, for the show. And but yeah, I got so good at it that, over the weeks, it's like a 10-week process. I'd say to the producer, hey, you want serious? I'll give you serious. You want funny? I'll give you funny. You want touching? I'll give you touching. You want insightful? I'll give you insightful. You want light bulb going on? I'll give you a light bulb going on. I was so smooth with all that, if you're getting interviewed for 40, 50 times, and I was funny, you know what I mean, during the interview time with the doctors. And so, yeah, I just got really good at it. And then, I'll give you the big punchline. It takes about, like I said, about 9 or 10 weeks. It's funny. They said that we were in the makeover mansion, but there is no such thing. They rent a place that they just take there briefly, but you stay in a long-term, nice hotel. It was near the Beverly Center in LA. And the show airs, and I had everything done. I had my nose trimmed. I got from Orthodox to conservative, Jewish. And my chin, they enhanced, my facelift. It's like a 14-hour operation. So the deal is, I got recognized more from Extreme Makeover than anything I had ever done. And at a corporate gig, I was up all night, basically. I got like 100 phone calls and emails from people, and then I got emails from worldwide. I get, a lot of women, by the way. And then, I was there with my son. People love that part of my profile on my part of the show. And it's really sweet. So I had a corporate gig in Sarasota, Florida the next night. So I had to leave at like 7 a.m. from LAX. And I get on the plane, and the flight attendants are there when you walk on board, and sometimes they say hello. The flight attendant goes, "Oh my God, I watched you on TV last night," And I'm walking down, people high-five me in first class, and it's like, "Hey, wow, there's the guy. Good for you, Steve." And and I get to my seat, and we take off, and this. The drink cart attendant is coming, pushing the cart, right, and taking drink orders. And she goes, she looks over, she goes, "Hey, good for you! I saw, good for you!" And the woman next to me, she doesn't know anything. She doesn't have to watch the show or anything. And she puts down her magazine and she goes, "I've got to ask, what is all this congratulations about?" And I said, "Well, I just got an Extreme Makeover." And she looks at me and she goes, "That is so fabulous. When do you start?" It's like, when do I, this is after 9, this is now, I'm here now, And yeah, it's when do you start? So I love the irony of it. I said, great, you gave me a great punchline. So, but yeah,
Well,
yeah, it didn't hurt me. Just to answer your question,
well,
why would I
but
do it?
no,
It ended up helping me.
but no. I was going to say also, but did you just have to totally reconstruct your act? Because as you said, you were
Yeah,
doing the weak chin material. So all of a sudden, that's, we all have a crutch. You have a
yeah.
certain thing you can go to. So when you started perform, what did you do?
Well, honestly, it was a great. I said this is going to force me to change my material, which it did. I could still do some of that material if I give it a correct context. But I was tired of doing the same old self-deprecating stuff. It was a lot of fun and it served me really well career-wise. But I said, well, Seinfeld retired a whole act, a whole giant 2 hours or whatever it was. And I said I could retire 15 minutes, or 20 minutes. And this is what I did. But I will tell you, during the show, I had written a draft of the book that I came on here to pitch. There is no wagon. I had a different title back then, but I was working on it then. Actually, one of the producers on the show read an early draft of my book. So I was working. So while I was, you get a lot of waiting. You're not going out on gigs. You basically have to stay indoors, and I had a lot of time to write, and think. So that's what I did. Yeah, a lot of stuff.
Now, are you happy with the final version of your book?
Yeah.
When you look at it, you go, this is what I aim for? Because as I said, I read the review and they said there's touching stories, there's funny stories, there's anecdotes. But when you look at it, do you feel like this was your best you could have done on this? Because it was, as you said, it was 20 years in the making, and you
Yes.
finally pulled it together and said, I'm going to finish this shit. But what's your when you look at it, what do you sit there and say? When you look at the book, when you picked it up,
Yeah.
what was your thought?
I'll tell you my thought right now. It's like letting go of a baby in a sense, your baby, your creative baby. And there's a correlation between your question and the philosophy of the book. I'm sure there's endless legions of writers that put their book out there, which I can basically do adjustments. I'm told I've self-published the book, but I'm told I can make some changes if I'd like to. And it's never, we're in motion. If I have to be imperfect with how I eat and not beat myself up about it, I have to do the same thing with the book. Whatever human vulnerability or creative challenges that a lot of people have, it's you don't know till you know, and sometimes after a matter of time you go, why didn't I add that? Why didn't I drop that? And it's like that with this book. But after a while, I have to let go of the perfection. It didn't serve me, and if I need to change it, I'll change it. But I think the greater good of the book. If somebody wants to order the book, by the way, it's going to be out soon on there's some little paper thing that needs to get straightened out of paperwork. But I self-published the book. But if somebody wants to order it, just go to, There Is No Wagon book by Steve Mittleman or whatever you want to put in there. Steve Mittleman, There Is No Wagon on Amazon. You can get a $5.99 ebook or a $19.99 paperback. And literally, I guarantee you, because I've been on both sides of this. I've been on the buyer's side, and I've been on going to eating disorder places, and I've been, various doctors, and I think I have more to offer for $5.99. If people take out X amount of nuggets of lessons, or just get inspired or encouraged for $5.99 or $19.99 for a paperback, it's an absurd versus spending $100 for a nutritionist or an eating disorder specialist or a therapist. Could be $150, $200. I guarantee you right now. I know I've listened to them. I've watched them. I just like everybody else. There's PhDs worth of information online. I guarantee you what I share in basic terms, in loving terms, is in self-loving terms, is just as good, if not better, than spending a lot of money. I'm not saying if you need it, go to experts. I'm not accredited. I have my life experience. I've been eating my whole life. So yeah. Anyway, that's my pitch for myself. But in my heart, my soul, I know I'm as good or better than a lot of pros out there.
That makes sense. Well, you know what? They should people check out the book. I'm going to read it because you sent me a copy. I'm going to read it. Instead of looking on a computer, I'm going to be like, ugh, I hate reading stuff off the computer. But I got one final question for you. I always ask my guests this.
Yeah.
Looking back on your career and your life, you've been on TV, you've been in movies, you've done commercials. Now you wrote a book. You've been on all different things. What are just one or two of the things that you're most proud of in your career and life?
I'll tell you an offstage thing I'm proud of. Almost everybody, because I hear this all the time, when somebody mentions my name to somebody quotes them, they go, if they're in the industry and I've crossed paths with them, they go, what a lovely guy, what a sweet guy, what a nice guy. I get that all the time. And the other thing, I don't know if this makes two of them, but they're kind of related. When somebody I know mentions me to somebody else and they know me, they go, I love that guy. I love that guy. It's one of the nicest, you're on the planet. That's my thumbprint, my personality thumbprint, as far as actually on camera stuff. Well, I mean, doing the Tonight Show, that was a dream come true. I worked with Woody Allen and Steve Martin within a year of each other. I was in radio days so I worked 9 days with Woody Allen, which was great. And I'm cut to shreds in there, but and there's a thing I did for the Thames Network in London. I did the Des O'Connor show a few times. I was even on the Best of Des. And my first appearance, they interview you and they have everything on these giant cards, cue cards, right? So Des is sitting over here, I'm sitting over here, and I don't know if he got drunk before the show or whatever, but he kept screwing up my questions, and I was making fun of him screwing up my questions. So after, a few minutes of this, I said, Des, why don't you sit in my seat and I'll be in your seat, and I know the questions to ask, and my answers are right here. You answer as me. And it was like, oh my God, did that take off? And the crowd went nuts. And I could never find I've looked every once in a while. I've emailed people and producers and I can't get I would love to get a copy of that, but I'm very proud of it. I would love to have seen it. And, overall, the last thing is the collective amount of laughs that I've got on stage. Like I just did a show at a 55 and older community here in California, and just people went nuts. I mean, it's just so gratifying, it's really gratifying.
That's awesome.
I've met amazing people in my career across paths, whether stars and not stars, and the amount of amazing people I've met, creative and, so the book, getting back to that last thing about the book, I'm very proud of it. And I say it's encouragement. I hope it's encouragement for people because I know people.
Well, that's great, Steve.
Yeah. And I hope to be most proud of that. Yeah.
That's good, and that's good. Hopefully, it's going to do well. So the people, it is called "There Is No Wagon." Go, and it's Mittleman. It's Mittle. Don't put Middle. It's Mittle. So look up Steve Mittleman. And now, is your website up yet? Is the Steve Mittleman up?
It is, but it's in process. Like I said, yeah, people go to it, but I'm sure it's chock full of a lot of stuff. There's my stand up. There's early. There's later. There's auctioneering stuff. There's hosting tapes. There's a wide variety of things. I'm like a jack of all comedic trades, So yeah.
Well, there you go. So people, go check out that website. Also, go to YouTube. Watch past episodes of Coop's Comedy Corner. Steve mentioned Rick Overton. Rick Overton's been on the show. Rich Scheidner, Wendy Liebman, Steve Scrogan. Yeah. I've had some great acts. Tim Stacks coming up. Also, go to on YouTube, look up the Coop Tank. That's the business show I host. It's me and 3 local business people. I do a roundtable. We talk about motivation. We talk about business. We talk about networking, all that good stuff. Don't forget coopertalk.net. I have over 1,031 episodes. Gino Benelli, I just interviewed him. He'll be coming on soon. And don't forget Jimmy Corhan, my producer in Comedy Trainwreck. Jimmy gets together some of the best comics in Philly. Coleman Green has a show. I have a show. John Kensel and the Wid have a show. There's a bunch of shows on that network. Ed McGonigal, who's one of the funniest guys around. So go check out Comedy Trainwreck. And follow me on Twitter at Cooper Talk. And I'm Steve Cooper. Don't forget, if you're in Maple Shade, go to my sponsors, Laurel Lanes. Go bowling, because Steve Mittleman's a bowler. And you can say, hey, I bowl just like Steve Guest. And then you stop by Splits for a cold beer. Anyway, you have a great night.
Thank you very much.
Talk to you next week.
Coops Comedy Corner.